welcome to another edition of the Movie Crypt. I'm Adam Green.
I'm Joe Lynch.
And we are recording this on Friday, March 7th, which means that it will post on Monday, March 10th.
Thank God we did another take because you got to figure all that math out.
I know, that was so smooth because we had a technical issue.
The original
Joe was choking.
take.
Yeah,
the original take, you choked on math.
February, it didn't work. So we're going to, normally we talk about the week, what we have going on, our movies, all that other stuff. We're going to actually fly through this because we're so excited about our guests this week. But let's see, you're in the final mix in color.
Today was the final day of the formal mix, and we presented the screening for all the producers and everything. And it's nerve-wracking because there's still the ability to present notes. And if you present notes to anybody and say, like, oh, well, we offer, we would love to hear what you're thinking, everyone is going to give you a fucking note.
Yeah, no one's going to just sit there and say nothing.
It's good. We're good.
Yeah.
Everybody does. So, this was like, we're just dealing with the sound, but of course, there's always going to be like, well, and there's this one shot that I don't think you really need. I'm like, no, this is for sound only. We're locked. But surprisingly and awesomely, if that's even a word, it was a great screening. And it was the first time that I was able to flip off the laptop, turn off the phone, and actually watch the movie.
That's awesome.
It's not bad. I gotta say, not bad.
I am having, actually, with no exaggeration, the greatest week of my life right now. The greatest week of my career. No, that's, I'm still waiting. I've been married for a while now, but we're waiting till we've been married for 10 years to do that because you got to make sure, you got to make sure it's the right one. Monday started with a job offer, which it's probably a mistake to even mention this because I know I'm going to get blown up with tweets. What is it? I can't talk about what the movie is, but I figured out what my next movie is that I'm directing, and that's really exciting. But then Tuesday, I had the honor and the privilege of meeting with Steven Tyler from Aerosmith at his house. I'll probably end up saving most of these stories for another episode because I'm still processing it and how it happened and what it was. But it was one of the most inspirational things I've ever. For those who have listened to this podcast since the beginning or followed my career, my cats are named Tyler and Perry. I've followed Aerosmith for 20 years now or whatever. I've seen him 31 times. Like it was life-changing. But there was one specific thing he said to me, which I will definitely bring up later in this podcast. But then Wednesday night, there was a Masters of Horror dinner.
That was pretty awesome.
About that. Occasionally, every few months, they have these sort of like secret dinners, and Wes Craven's there, Coscarelli and Mick Garris, and Bryan Singer was there this time.
Yeah, Bryan Singer showed up.
Yeah, it was. It's just awesome to get together with all those guys, and the stories that end up being shared, and I mean, John Landis. Just every other thing is
you wind
amazing.
up Landis, man, and he can go on for days.
Yeah, and he will be coming on the podcast eventually. And then last night was a screening of Children of Men at the ArcLight where Wes Craven spoke,
Very cool.
Which was fantastic. And but what I'm really excited about is tonight. So we had Colton Dunn on the podcast. Was it
a month ago? About a month and a half or something.
Was it? Or was it before? No, it was right after Christmas. It was the first episode this year. That's right. And both Joe and I are just gushing about Key and Peele. And the cool thing about
gushing is an understatement because right after that episode, because we had watched the show, of course, separately, but we always kind of debrief at the office and ended up 4 hours.
Well, clips? Yeah. What happened was we both loved the show separately, and we would mention it all the time. But then one night we just started kind of binge watching, and it's like, oh,
because you never saw the Die Hard one. Yeah, and that's like one of my favorite.
And
ones.
then I'm like, oh, did you see this one? Anyway, so 4 hours go by, and this is a true story. And again, if you listen to this podcast, but like the industry is very small, and it seems really big at first, but it's very small and very connected, and everybody's usually just 1 or 2 degrees away from each other. But one of the things that we both were saying was like, man, we're so happy for these guys. Like this, I hope this show goes forever. I can see these guys doing movies. It might sound weird if you don't work in this industry, or if you're one of those bitter, jaded people where it's not working out for you, that people actually speak like that. But that is what we do. And it was like, if Zach Levi was on again, we'd be like, it's like blessing them. But it's like, man, I hope good shit happens for these people. This is awesome. We're such fans. And then 6 hours later, I got an email thing from Twitter that said Jordan Peele's following you on Twitter, and I emailed my wife. I texted you. I'm like, dude, this is like the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. It's like,
and just weirdly serendipitous because it literally was 6 hours later, and like at 4 a.m, I get a text like, Jordan Peele's following me. I'm like, what the fuck? What did you do? What did you do? What did you do? Did you start Twittering him?
No,
did you DM him somehow?
I didn't Twitter stalk him or anything. And so lo and behold, a few weeks later, here he is with us, Jordan Peele.
What's up?
Dude, this is awesome.
What an intro. Thank you, man. That's so great. That's so great. And yeah, and you just DM'd me, and the rest is history.
Yeah, the rest is history.
And you know, I was at I guess a premiere party or some sort of something at a bar for Hatchet 3. Right, that's the one Colton's in.
Yeah, 2. Hatchet 2.
My fault. Yeah, 2. And I don't remember if I met you there. I don't know if I met you there.
Was it
I'm guessing not.
Or something? Like next door?
No, it was at, God, I want to say El Coyote or something like that.
No, you know what? It was at Pig and Whistle.
Pig and Whistle, okay.
Because it was right next door to the Egyptian.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
right.
That's right.
And I went there with Colton just because, you know, he's he's my
got to
best
support
bud.
the chicken and biscuits.
Got to support the chicken and biscuit.
Dude steals the movie with an improv. Like,
awesome.
And everyone always asks me, like, oh, what were you, when you wrote that? I'm like, it's the one thing I didn't write. Like, I always got to give him credit, and it kills me.
That sucks.
I loved it when you came up with that. Yeah, it wasn't me.
Right.
So we had Colton on, and we got to talk a lot about the writing of your show and stuff. But you have a amazing story in terms of, it's funny, like, I'm sure there's people out there, whether you had seen Jordan on Mad TV or even like Wanderlust or any of all the guest star spots that you've done on TV. I mean, Bob's Burgers, and I mean, you're kind of like Comedy Central's like guy. I mean, it's like Kroll Show, Reno 911, what like
a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, all of them. But then, Key and Peele like hit pretty quick once it launched. Everybody started talking about it. So I'm sure there's people out there that are like, oh, like this must have happened overnight. Like these guys must have just been funny and gotten a pilot. But when you hear how long of a process it really
long
is.
night. One very long night.
Yes, very long. A 12-year night.
A 12-year night.
Leading up to that.
Yeah. And all right, so before we get into all that, we usually do the fan questions. But as a sort of overview, so you grew up in New York.
Went to Sarah Lawrence College, and I'd always wanted to be a film director. Was just a total geek, and the sort of a visual artist. And I went to Sarah Lawrence because I got.
What were some of when did you know that you wanted to do that? How young were you? Like, what was there a specific movie? Was there a
specific movie that got me into? It was very young. I mean, Aliens just blew my mind.
Yep.
That was one of those first movies I just became.
And you saw it in the theater, and you were just like,
I did not see that in the theater.
Really?
I did not see that. I was a little bit too young to see that in the theater. Mm-hmm. And I remember seeing it at a friend's house when I was on either TV or came out on VHS, and it just blew my mind. And I'm a huge horror fan. I was petrified. I think probably like most.
Fuck.
It's terrifying. Scary.
Petrified, and just petrified in general of scary movies, but fascinated.
Mm-hmm.
And
did your mom support you watching them, or did you have to like hide it, or?
It wasn't too much of a support. She did not bring that into my, but she was very supportive of horror in general. Like she would tell ghost stories. She was an appreciator of spooky things and the place for that. Big Halloween fan. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about the holiday.
Yeah.
And I just, active imagination. So when the way I saw movies was at a friend's house, my friend Max Musser, who was awesome kid. He was kind of like, had this little Bart Simpson personality where he's like this rascal and he could kind of get away with
running around telling people to eat his shorts.
Right. He threw a literal stink bomb in the cafeteria at school.
I like this guy already. Max, you're a fucking
awesome kid. We were, third, fourth grade. He had Fangoria magazines and, somehow got his hands on Playboy.
So Max was your gateway.
He was my gateway. That's, I watched Nightmare on Elm Street at his house, Dream Warriors, a big just breakthrough. Like, it's those movies that transcend just being scary as fuck. And
they're roller coaster rides in a way.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And you realize like, wow, it was I'm horrified now, but I'm better for having watched that. Mm-hmm. I love the fact that I watched that. And so That Dream Warriors, Aliens, all fit into that category where it's like the entertainment surpassed the terror.
Yeah.
And so and all movies. I love Ridley Scott. I love Tim Burton. The Coen brothers. So yeah, I can't really pinpoint the exact movie, but
Sidebar, really quick. Did you see the new Ridley Scott movie?
I didn't see
The Counselor.
No, I didn't see it.
What a fucking awesome movie!
Is
Really?
it?
I haven't seen
The
it yet.
theatrical cut came out in like last September, and everyone just shit all over it. The only person who liked
Yeah.
it was like Bret Easton Ellis, and he's of course because he just likes everything that everyone hates.
Right.
And there was talk of a director's cut, and then the director's cut came out like last month.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's like
Okay.
old school Ridley Scott, where he was a little bit more dangerous. He wasn't atmospheric, like dirty, like real fucking dirty. You'll never look at Penelope Cruz and not think about her vagina smell ever. The way.
Oh well,
like,
that's already.
Did I sell it?
it?
Gory as shit. There's a beheading in it that I've never seen before, and there's a very famous actor that dies in the movie. I'm not going to give it away. That is probably one of the most disgusting deaths I've seen in years. And you sit there and go like, what happened? And in the commentary, Ridley Scott says, kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater. Like he was pressured to make a smaller cut, and it killed the movie. I could not recommend it higher, especially after like walking away from Prometheus, going like,
right.
This is like old school Ridley Scott back again.
Okay.
So had to make a recommendation.
No, that's
Sorry.
great. That's great because I definitely fell off around I think around White Squall. I don't think I.
When he became a little too like big for his britches in a way, where it's like we got to make uplifting human spirit kind of movies. I did Columbus. Now let me
just stay in the dark zone.
Yeah, exactly, and it's fucking great.
Oh, well, great.
So you went to Sarah Lawrence.
I went to Sarah Lawrence, and my major was puppetry. Self-declared major. I was just, they didn't have like a puppetry department, but it's liberal arts and sort of, come up with your own curriculum. And
puppetry, really?
Yeah, I was.
So were you into Henson, the Muppets, and all that
totally
stuff?
into Henson and the Muppets. All I knew, I didn't know. As far as I was concerned, I was like, dude, if I end up just a starving artist who's just doing insane puppet shows, that'll be the coolest shit in the world. Like, horror-based, gothic, fucking weird ass, found object and shit puppet shows. That'll be,
Did you like Dark Crystal Labyrinth?
Loved that stuff. Those were huge for me. Loved Nightmare Before Christmas and all the
Henry Selick stuff.
The Henry Selick stuff. Who I got to meet a couple months ago.
Really?
And
Wow.
it was like the best meeting I've ever had.
Oh wow!
He is awesome. He's like one of the sweetest guys and one of the most underappreciated kind of artists, ever. And
did you like Coraline?
I loved Coraline.
The first time I saw it, I liked it. And then I saw it again with my kid, and I think it's one of the greatest movies he's ever done.
I'm obsessed with kids horror.
Yeah.
It's like
Paranorman. Did you see Paranorman?
I saw Paranorman. Yeah. That's great.
Frankenweenie.
Frankenweenie's amazing. It's all this stuff that it takes a really deft hand to do it well. Mm-hmm. And I grew up in this. I grew up in this era of like where kids movies had some adult content,
like danger to it. Like when you watch The Goonies, you go, they would never make a movie like this today.
That's right.
No way. With just the way that the morals are and the way that the restrictions are. If they remade Goonies, which I hear they are,
yeah, they are.
They would never be able to get away with half of the shit in there.
That it would be awesome if they made Goonies, but the same. They brought back the cast, so it's like adult Goonies.
Switch,
pass the torch, but bring them back.
Torch.
And they have their own.
Or it's like Troy's kid.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't go up Troy's bucket.
But yeah, E.T. had the E.T. dying in a river, and like Neverending Story had the morgue and the Artek dying in the swamp of sadness. Just shit that was not okay.
Hands.
Oh God, it's
heartbreaking. Yeah, the heartbreaking fucking rock giant scene. So this, at some point, that stuff just kind of stopped happening. I don't know when it was. I don't know if it was like people started getting freaked out like around Columbine or something, where it was like all of a sudden darkness in kids was not okay.
Yeah, they didn't mix it. And when you think about Neverending Story specifically, that's a movie that if you didn't see it as a child, I just don't believe you can truly appreciate it, because that movie, it's weird because it's a movie, but it feels like a book, and the fact that you have to use your imagination so much, and the fact that even I remember as a child when they're explaining the nothing, and it's like, well, what? So like a black hole? I'm like, no, nothing. Yeah. There's nothing there. I don't feel like an adult can grasp that, but I remember as a kid, that was one of the most terrifying things ever.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing.
The nothing.
And it's like, how are you going to scare people? Nothing. Like
that is it. That is it, right? That's the big fear of death
with
too.
The wolf and everything.
That there's nothing else.
That there's nothing else. That's the big fear. And you know what I mean? I don't think I really appreciated as a kid the extent of what the Neverending Story was until I watched it a few years ago and realized it was about us watching the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
it was the idea that we were watching Bastian read this movie, and then there was some other audience watching us watching it.
It was kind of meta before meta in a way.
Crazy shit.
Did you ever see the sequel? It was on cable. It was on cable.
Jonathan Brandis.
Jack Black was in that one. No, he's in 3.
That's the third one.
He's in 3.
Wait, there's a third one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. I tried to watch the sequel. It was on cable over Christmas.
Right. Brandis was in that.
Brandis. It's not great.
Nearly as good. But Wolfgang Peterson, I think, directed that one, but he didn't do the third one.
Well, right. So how long from when you finished college did you make the move out here? Because you went other places first.
So I did 2 years of college, and just I got into a comedy group, and I had some experience acting as a kid, and so I just really took to this improv and sketch comedy thing. And I could tell there was something there. Like this was, and the way I sort of describe it is like I could tell that this energy I was putting into puppetry and learning out how to take objects and use the natural way they fall to kind of imbue them with character. I sort of realize, okay, well, I'm born with the most intricate, specific, fucking ridiculous puppet that there is, and that's just your body. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, all right, well, let's take this and let's just run with it. And so I just fell in love with improvisation, and that's essentially it. Just letting what happens, mm-hmm. and using that and turning that into a story. And so with a friend of mine, Becky Drysdale, who is also a writer on Key and Peele now. We moved from Sarah Lawrence. We quit school and said, you know what? I want to be a sketch performer. I want to be on SNL. Essentially, there's no degree that's going to help me with this. I want to move to Chicago, study improv, take classes. The Second City, world famous comedy mecca, and that's what we did. So we moved to Chicago, lived there for about a year and a half. We put together a 2-man show that kind of got some local acclaim, and we got picked up by this scouts from this theater called Boom Chicago. And Boom Chicago is a little confusing, but it's in Amsterdam, and it is this. They just grab young American improvisers and say, hey, you want to work in Amsterdam? Do comedy, sketch and improv comedy 6 nights a week. Mm-hmm. Which is, any budding improvisers, like that's what you just want to be able to do it. You just want the practice. And so it was, that was a no-brainer. So I went there, and Boom Chicago was just like the best time. I mean, you can imagine just
now when Colton was on, he was talking about how performing in general in Amsterdam, there was a little bit of a learning curve in terms of like they don't necessarily find the same things funny mm-hmm. that we would hear, and then adapting to that, but how that eventually we're going to get to this, but how that adapted into finding the comedy and things that everybody can understand mm-hmm. and a universal thing. And I think that's one of the biggest strength to me about Key and Peele is like you guys take things that every single person can relate to, whether it's as simple as the sketch with the wife asking why the history keeps being cleared on the computer. Right. Nobody can watch that and not understand exactly what that feels like and what it is. Yeah. But are to comedy about people's names, the most simple things. Then you take it. Then you'll also and again, I don't want to jump the shark and get into this yet, but you also take something like, obviously it's been talked about a lot, but the slavery auction thing, the moment that faded up, I was so uncomfortable, like, oh man, oh God, what? But the comedy isn't necessarily about the slavery, it's about human beings, and why am I not good enough, and why can't, and it's like, to do that in a horrifically horrible situation and make it funny, most people would back down from that challenge. But you're able to find that, and did understanding that and being able to mine comedy in something that is universal. Did doing comedy abroad help hone that at all?
I'm sure it did. And the type of things that don't work in Amsterdam are pop culture references that not everyone will get, and it's an international crowd. You have people from everywhere. Things about different countries definitely hits there. But I think there's more of an innate sense you develop of the physical comedy, of the emotional comedy and emotional truths. But I think I operate from this sort of comedy ideal, which is anything can be funny. You have to accept that anything can be funny. It's the more difficult a subject matter there are more harder things to make funny, but it can be made funny. And so, I also believe that sketch, one of the most important things about sketch comedy as an art form, and I guess any art, is that it's there to push boundaries. It's there to do something that hasn't been done before. Otherwise, it's just repeating it's repeating the same old stuff.
So you were never, did you ever pursue the traditional stand-up thing of standing there with a mic and being like, so my wife or my boss, I was flying, and
huge stand-up fan growing up, never pursued that fully. I've done different stints of going at it, and for the limited time I've done it, I've had a lot of fun, and it's a great thing to be able to use the skills and the other sort of disciplines of comedy in that specific discipline.
That's surprising though, because having watched the show, especially when especially earlier on when you guys were doing the crowd stuff, you guys were playing off the crowd very much like traditional stand-up. I mean, I know that it was you and Keegan doing it together, but there was a command of the audience that felt so natural that it almost felt like you guys had that general I can command this crowd and work this crowd really well to my advantage. That's why when hearing that you never did stand-up, I'm like, interesting. Because there is the theatrical nature of being able to work that crowd. That's so difficult.
Well, one, I guess, haven't done it's a little, we did a lot of crowd work in Boom Chicago, I should say. So we would introduce games a lot. It's like short form improvisation. So every 10 minutes, you would need one of us to come up and say, okay, we are going to do this game. That's this, that, and the other thing. And we need a suggestion of a place that we're going to be to do this. And, bathroom. That's the first time we've heard that, sir. Thank you very much. And you sort of develop that rapport with the audience because you have to keep them comfortable. And, you're always, any little extra laugh you can get in that zone keeps the ball rolling. So, night after night, the Boom Chicagoans would sort of learn that and get that ingrained into them. And, that's Seth Meyers is a Boom Chicago grad, Sudeikis, Baron Holtz, and all these guys are just, masters of the gab like that.
Between seasons 1 and 2, and even to season 3, when, and again, if you're listening to this, I hope you're watching the show. I would find it hard pressed to think with how much we've talked about it that these people aren't watching it. But now, when season 2 and 3 happen, chances are pretty good the people in that crowd are familiar with the show and you guys, hopefully.
Yeah.
Was it any easier at that point? Because I mean, one of the things that I like about that, because I like the banter almost as much as the sketches, because it's just like the chemistry between you guys. You guys are very, very likable, and you're just being you when you come out and you're talking about things, and it doesn't feel super scripted. It doesn't feel like an agenda or a setup. Sometimes what you guys are speaking about for subject matter isn't even directly what the sketch is going to be. It's something sort of in that vein, and it's so when you were doing it for season 1, like let's say like the first time you guys shot it and you walked out, and maybe there's people in that crowd who don't necessarily know what they're in for yet. Was that harder, easier? Was it different with like your approach?
I think if you watch it, especially if you watch it all in a row, you can see there's a clear progression in the style of the stand-up, or maybe it's not clear, but maybe you can tell that it's evolving.
Yeah.
And there is a story to it. We the show we pitched was actually, that would have interstitial elements, but that would have been basically a camera mounted on a car, and Keegan and I driving around and just shooting